Hello everyone, my name is Landon and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be going over the top 5 worst Stephen King novels. Now when I say worst, I just mean that these books just didn't they're not awful, but they're just not as good as many of his other titles, such as, let's say, Needful Things or Christine. They're just books that are under the shadow of all of his best ones, and they were sort of disappointments to me. There some of these books on here have great stories, but it just wasn't executed very, very well, but it was still decent. But anyways, let's get straight into the list. And we're going to start off with number 5, and that is Rose Madder. Much like many of these books, this book starts off terrific. The first 150 so pages are great. Rose Madder is about a woman named Rosie Daniels, and she lives in an abusive relationship with her husband, and she finally runs away from the abusive relationship. And the suspense that builds up to her running away and her thinking that's her husband, who is a police officer, is following her is great. The setup is amazing, but much like Stephen King's novels, he loves sci-fi horror, and he threw in sci-fi horror into this book when it wasn't needed. This book could have been a great drama about a woman running away from her past, but he had to throw in a dark tower-ish reference to it. She went in, she saw a painting, and she bought the painting, and every other day the painting would change, and she went into the painting at one point, and she had to kill this bull. I forgot what the exact name of the bull was, and she killed it, and then she, saved, another woman, I think her name was Rose, and, it's just crazy. There was stuff in this book that wasn't needed, much like many of these other books, but this is only number 5 on the list, so we're not getting too into the bad ones yet, but I just really think that the sci-fi element was not needed at all into this book. I did like the only sci-fi element in this book that I did like was the ending where she had the arguments with the tree, where she was an angry woman, she's always been an angry woman, and she let the anger out through the tree, and yeah, that's the best part about this book, in my opinion. Not an awful book, just not one of his best. At the number 4 spot, we have Mr. Mercedes, the first book in this Bill Hodges trilogy. I like murder mysteries, but the Bill Hodges series just really didn't hit it with me. I did like End of Watch and Finders Keepers. Finders Keepers was much like Misery at the beginning, and the author of the person stealing the author's ideas and stuff like that. Mr. Mercedes was the worst of the trilogy in my opinion. And it didn't really click with me. I don't think Stephen King is the best murder mystery writer. End of Watch and Finders Keepers were okay, but Mr. Mercedes just wasn't that good for me. That's really all I can say. I did enjoy the ending where they did end up beating Brady and, he woke up in the hospital and stuff like that. That part of it was good. The ending was decent, but, I feel like it was kind of prolonged in a way, and it just really didn't work for me in some way. And there's definitely better books, way better books than this one. That's why it's so low on this list. Alright. This one's way too big. Number 3, we have Under the Dome. Where to begin with Under the Dome? This book is 1,000 and almost 100 pages long. This book could have been 300 pages long. There was so much in Under the Dome that didn't need to be. It was insane. There were so many scenes in this book that were, not needed. He just kept prolonging everything in this book. He just kept going on and on and on and on and on. And the ending. Let's talk about the ending for a second. It's aliens, guys. The dome is the aliens, and they made up with the aliens, and the dome is lifted, and everybody's saved. That's what the 1,000 behemoth of this book leads up to. An ending where it was aliens who did it, and one of the women inside the dome connects with one of the baby aliens, not baby alien, but child aliens, a woman child alien, and they become friends or something like that. They have shared pasts or something like that, and that makes them lift the dome, and all of the air that was polluted and stuff dissipates from the air, and it's a 1,000 page trip that could have been a really good 400-page trip. Like, the dome and, like, people struggling inside the dome could have been the first 100 pages. Next 100 could have been them trying to get out. The next 100 is, like, them figuring out what's going on. And the last 100 could be that awful ending. And maybe he could have made it a little better. A lot of people said 7 words, the best yet from the best ever. There's no way. I don't know what book they were reading. King returns to his glorious days as the stand. I don't know what people were thinking with this book. This book was way too big, and it's number 3 on my list. At the number 2 spot, many of you will probably agree with me on this one, the Tommyknockers. Much like Under the Dome, this is a 950-page book, 64-page book, 964-page book. Let's talk about the first 300 and the last 200 pages of this book, and not talk about the middle 400. The first 300 pages of this book were great. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. The last 200 pages of this book were okay. I enjoyed the ending, and the concept of this book was one of my favorites for any Stephen King novel. But what really killed my spirit for this book was the 400-page, literally just, he was on acid or something like that when he wrote this book, cocaine or something. This was like the last book that he wrote before he took a break, and then he wrote like amazing novels. Like, I think Misery was the one that came after this one or something like that. But the thing about the Tommyknockers was the middle 400 pages was just Stephen King saying the same exact thing over and over and over and over and over again. He did that with Under the Dome, and he definitely did that. He did it worse with the Tommyknockers. When does part 1 of this book end? Wherever part 1 of this book ends, that's where it's great. That's where it stops being really good. It's like page 200 something. Page 280, I think it's 80 something. 300. It's like around page, that's chapter 3 of part 2. So yeah, right around page 280, that's when it starts getting really, really bad, and I didn't care. 278 is when part 1 ends, and the awful stuff begins. And then, like, this much of the book, something like that, is just him saying the same thing over and over and over again. And it's just awful. But the last 200 kind of made up for it, but not really. I think he could have done a little bit more with the ending, but it was just killed by the awful middle of this book. Alright, and last but certainly not least, we have a book that I'm actually a huge fan of the movie. I think the movie was fantastic, but the book just didn't really hit it off with me. Geralds Game. The reason why I don't like this one so much is because I feel like he could have done a lot better with, like, what am I trying to say here? Like, the movie captured the book well. It captured it better than what the book was trying to capture. Yes, we go, like, deep into her past and stuff, and Gerald, the first 50 pages where Gerald dies is pretty good, but everything after that with, like, the dog, there are some really weird scenes with the dog. The Moonlight Man is pretty creepy, I'll give him that, but that was also just really weird. Everything in this book was just weird to me. And it really just didn't click. And I feel like it could have been a little shorter, like the Tommyknockers and Under the Dome, but it didn't really need to be. And it's not really that long of a book, so I'll give it that. It's only 500 pages long. But it just didn't really click with me. Her being chained to the bed the entire story, and, like, the dog being there. There was, like, one scene that I don't even think I can say on camera in this book that was just, it was terrible to read. I don't think I can say it on camera, because if I do, I'll probably get demonetized. I don't even think I am monetized, but I'll probably get this video off the internet. It was really, really weird. And Gerald in this book was a lot, like, more effed up he's a lot more effed up in the book than he is in the movie. Like, we feel for him in the movie more than we do in the book. Like, in the book, he just seems more pedophile-ish than he does in the movie. In the movie, he definitely does, but we actually sort of care for him in the movie than we do in the book. And there were just so many scenes, like, a lot of people were even saying, like, this book would be the last Stephen King adaptation that they would ever do, because it would be so hard to make it go to screen, because there were so many things challenging about this book. And they did a really good job with the movie. The Netflix original film is literally pitch perfect, but the book, on the other hand, it really just didn't click with me. It's like, much like Mr. Mercedes, there was just something about this book that just didn't really click with me. And that's really it. So, let me put that back. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like on the video, subscribe, comment down below what your 5 least favorite Stephen King novels are. If you have a list, And a lot of these books weren't, like, awful, but they just weren't as good as many of his, like, Dreamcatcher, Needful Things, and Misery. They just weren't as good. Nowhere even close. And there were just so many scenes in those books that just didn't need to be, like the Tommyknockers and Under the Dome and Rose Matter. That sci-fi element just killed my spirit for that book. But, like, I don't really know what else to say. So, if you guys enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell icon if you're new. I can't talk today. And comment down below what your 5 least favorite Stephen King novels are, and I'll see you guys in the next video.